Okay, I've been following the implosion of Nicholas J. Fuentes and his America First movement, mostly because I find it funny, but also because, he was, and I think still is to a certain extent, a very relevant individual in the lives of a lot of young men in this country. A subset, a very small subset, but he has his following. And as he transitioned from edgy online political pundit into full-blown cult leader, I felt it necessary to start to acknowledge that. Not just because it's fun to talk about. It is. I mean, it's hilarious to see what's happening here, but it's also very interesting to watch a cult blow up in real time. And so things have gotten a lot worse since the last time I talked about the America First movement, as he calls it. And honestly, I hope that as things continue to get crazier and crazier, more of his followers will wake up and not go along for the ride and will instead, take a step back and say, this is not what I signed up for. Because it turns out that the tradcath, male chauvinist leader of the white race, who appears to be under the age of 20 despite being 23, is an out-and-out homotype sexual. Now, I wouldn't care if some political pundit turns out to be a homotype sexual. Those people exist. I've met homosexuals before. They can be perfectly well-meaning and functioning members of society. But when you're leading a Catholic traditionalist, white nationalist cult, it's pretty damn funny when you're exposed as a homosexual who takes an interest in transsexual on femboy pornography. And I wasn't sure at first, because when people get booted off Twitter, they have to make these alt accounts, and there's always plausible deniability, because if it was confirmed that these accounts were ran by, these people who already been banned on Twitter, they'd get banned again. And so nobody actually wants to confirm 100% that a Twitter account that they're using is theirs. They play the old Medicare game of saying, oh, this is my good friend's Twitter account, but we all know that we all know what Medicare's Twitter is, and the same thing with other people who get banned repeatedly. They make new accounts. And so a Twitter account that appeared to belong to the leader of the America First white nationalist, male chauvinist, traditionalist Catholic cult tweeted out it was like a screen recorded video from a phone showing I think it was like Google Analytics of search terms or something, or for websites, showing how much more popular Nick Fuentes is than his detractors. And he was going through multiple, tabs on his phone. There was a tab that showed, I guess, how popular his cozy.tv website is, and how I guess, the Google search traffic for his name and other people's names. But there was one more open tab that the viewers of this video caught a glimpse of, which appeared to show the thumbnail for some pornographic video. And then some autist, Coomer, addict on kiwi farms just happened to recognize from that one frame what video it was, went and found it, and it turns out that it was not straight. Now keep in mind that, Fuentes is supposedly so trad that he doesn't even believe in self-pleasuring. That's what he preaches to his followers. Don't do that, I'm pretty sure. And, definitely don't ever watch pornography. That's sinful. It's terrible. And, I think that there is a lot of merit to that kind of a message. I do think that such media does rot your brain, and that it's not a good idea to, just pleasure yourself while consuming this kind of media all the time. People who do that, to a certain extent, seem to lose their minds. And there have even been psychological studies done on these kinds of people, showing that it does rot their brain to a certain extent. So you would think that the leader of this traditionalist Catholic white nationalist male chauvinist organization would set the example for the rest of his followers to follow. That's why they're following him. That's why he would be the leader, presumably. And yet here, this Twitter account, which, wink, nudge, nudge, beforehand was recognized as the Twitter account for Nicholas J. Fuentes, Catboy Extraordinaire, you would think it would come as quite a shock to his followers. And from what I could observe amongst people within this movement, the reactions were mixed. Many people in his live chat, when he fired up his stream to do his regular broadcast, where he talks about, all of the tradcath, white male chauvinist stuff that they're going to accomplish as a movement, and what's going on with the news, and how degenerate everybody else is. There were a lot of people, apparently, in his chat just spamming the word fag, which to me seemed to be a direct reference to this controversy. But on Twitter, I saw massive amounts of cope. I mean, just enough copium to kill 3 football stadiums full of people. And it usually came in the form of a conspiracy theory that this was, in fact, not Nicholas Fuentes' latest Twitter account, despite the fact that this Twitter account was followed by almost everyone within Nicholas J. Fuentes' inner circle. Seems like pretty damning evidence to me. Why is it that his inner circle would be following this random account, which in no way is associated with Nicholas J. Fuentes, is in fact a hoax, an account that was created by a hater of Nick Fuentes, just so that they could get caught looking at this unfortunate pornographic video. Now, if that's the case, if this was a setup, this setup was quite the shot in the dark. This was not a big account with a lot of followers, for one thing, and two, the glimpse that people got of this video was so minute that it's a wonder that anyone ever discovered what the video actually was. I would think that if an individual or a group of individuals were bent on trying to frame the white nationalist catboy leader, that they would be a little more overt about the dirt that they tried to attribute to him. Like maybe accidentally tweeting out a link to said pornographic video. I mean, who doesn't remember when Ted Cruz's official Twitter account, which of course is managed by some intern, accidentally tweeted out a pornographic video? It was very embarrassing for Ted Cruz. And so why not do something similar, just as out there as what, to Nicholas J. Fuentes? To me, the more reasonable explanation is that this was, in fact, really him, and that this was an accidental slip-up. This was, it was the furthest back tab on the phone, because it was a phone, so it instead of showing all the tabs, left to right, it shows all the tabs from back to front. I think it was Safari on an iPhone, if I remember correctly. But really, at this point, how much more evidence do we need? There is more evidence coming out every week, and accusations from whistleblowers and dissidents from within his own movement. I don't know how much longer he can keep up this facade. How long will his financial backers continue to pour money onto this dumpster fire? I feel like Nicholas J. Fuentes at this point is in a very similar situation to Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. It's all over but the crying at this point. It is a sure thing that Zelensky will fall, and it's a sure thing that Nick Fuentes will fall. I mean, he's at the stage of requesting on his now newly minted Twitter account. By the way, did I mention that this supposedly fake Twitter account was deleted off of Twitter in the middle of Nicholas J. Fuentes' show, after the chat started spamming and calling him a fag, Nick just sat there silently on his phone for a few minutes while the chat is mad at him. Then at this very moment, when Nick is just sitting on his phone tapping away under pressure from the chat, this supposedly fake account that was being used to frame Nick Fuentes is deleted from Twitter. And now Nick Fuentes has a new, also SpongeBob themed, because for some reason all of his alt accounts are SpongeBob themed. I don't know. I like SpongeBob. I guess it's good enough theme as any to go with. So on his new account now, he is retweeting videos of his followers. If you're eating something, please be advised. You might not want to hear this. What they're doing is they're taking copies of Bronze Age Mindset, which is a book by an old Twitter user and blogger called Bronze Age Pervert, who I don't think is around anymore. I never liked him. He always came across as a very weird guy. I don't know, anybody who has a profile picture of, just ripped, muscly men, I don't know, unless you're like a bodybuilder trainer or something like that, it just, And he seemed to like a lot of those muscly pictures. It just seemed a little, as the kids would say, or as Nick Fuentes would say, sussy. But anyway, I guess Nick Fuentes has some beef with this Bronze Age pervert fellow, and he's ordering his followers to go out and buy his book, Bronze Age Pervert's book, throw it in the toilet, and then urinate on it, and post the video on Twitter to show their support for Nicholas J. Fuentes. Now, there's a cult where you're supposed to post on Twitter yourself urinating to prove your loyalty. This is their loyalty pledge. I mean, this isn't, frat boy stuff. This is Nexium level stuff. I don't know, maybe it's not that bad because Nick isn't branding them yet. I say yet. But I do think that this is dangerous, and that if there aren't more people making fun of them and trying to expose them and trying to break these people out of their bubble, you can't just let them stew in this. Because if you let these folks, because he probably has multiple thousands of followers still at this point. If you just let him and his followers, sit in this little stew pot that they've got going and constantly feed off of each other and continue to get gayer and more radical and more perverted and more violent. Fuentes is now, talking about how, you need to be loyal to him above all else. Even if he were, like to kill people, political principles mean nothing. That's just an excuse to stab me in the back. I mean, he's really setting up a very, very dark arc for the America First movement. And so I worry about this. I think that we could get to the point to where, Nick trains a small remnant of his Groyper movement into shock troops who are 100% loyal to him and will do anything to please him. And then potentially, I don't know, I don't even want to think about it, what he could order them to do. But he's training these people. He's making it clear, if you want to be a part of this movement, if you want to be one of my viewers, you need to be loyal to me personally and only me, and not care about any ideas. Doesn't matter if, all the way up to murder. He was having people take the pledge. I will kill, rape, and die for you, Nick. And it's easy to write all this, it's just a joke, it's irony, I'm an irony bro. Well, at a certain point, if the irony lingers for so long, and you know nothing else, it becomes serious. At a certain point, I think that this does become a serious issue. And not because I can't take a joke and because I don't think people should be allowed to joke. That's not it. It's that I don't think that he's joking. It's that he's being backed into a corner. He's been exposed. And time is running out for him. And it seems that the longer things go on, every week there's something new that's coming out. I mean, heck, this Jaden guy who was, was his closest confidant, someone who Fuentes still claims to love very passionately. I think it's pretty certain that Fuentes harbored and still harbors to this day deep homosexual affection for this individual. He is now speaking a little more openly about his time with Fuentes, and it seems Fuentes is a coomer, like a 3 to 4 times a day. I mean, that's insane. I don't even know how, physically, how do you exist as a person? And so this is someone who is not in great shape mentally. He's got all these yes men who tell him on the internet how great of a person he is, and yet he's locked up in this apartment, and he's just pleasuring himself all day, while looking at depraved pornography. And people are pledging their loyalty to him, that they will kill, rape, and die for him, that they're going to piss on a book in a toilet and then presumably pick up that book and take it to the trash with their bare hands, because you can't flush a book down the toilet. So I don't know how, if you know someone personally, like if you have a little brother or maybe an older brother, I don't know. I think for most people, if they have a relative, it would be a son or a little brother or a cousin or something, because it seems like Nick's audience is like pretty much 20 or younger. I think at this point he's outgrown his audience. As I've said in the past, Nick and I are the same age. We were born within like a few weeks of each other, I think. And there was a time, like a couple of years ago, like when the Great War was still going on, and even before that, like I felt like culturally and like is that right? Not culturally, but like generationally, we were kind of in sync. I could get his his humor and stuff, and the way he talked. He sounded like someone that I would have gone to high school with. And I think that's what Nick's original appeal was. He sat there in front of his green screen, and he just sounded like your base classmate in biology. But we're not kids anymore, he and I. And when I watch his clips now, he's kind of still the same. He just still acts like the same dweeby, edgy high school kid. And so I think that's still his audience. So if you know of anybody who is embedded in this cult and has bought into it, I don't know how the best way to try and talk him out of it, but I mean, it needs to happen. I mean, find out. I think that him saying, the personal loyalty thing over principles, I think that might be a wedge to get in there, because I think that there are well-meaning people maybe who start watching, maybe not anymore, but certainly back in the day there were somewhat well-meaning people who were they were roped in by his rhetoric, thought he had thought he made sense because he's a good talker. I think he's a talented, maybe not a talented broadcaster so much. I don't think he has a great work ethic or super high production value, and it seems like he has a lot of help behind the scenes. But I think that he is a good pundit. He has a skill, because punditry is an art in and of itself, independent of your ideas. There are people who have zero ideas who are skilled as pundits. They'll go on TV, say whatever is popular at the time, just because they're good at sitting on and giving those little sound bites. I think Nick is someone who's skilled at that, and so he was able to bring people over to his side and convince them of his ideas, because he was persuasive. And so those same people, if they now hold certain ideas, if they find out all of a sudden, oh, well, I'm not supposed to hold certain ideas, I'm just supposed to be personally loyal to Nick, maybe that's a wedge in there to where you could try and convince him, hey, this is kind of a cult. He's just saying that you need to be personally loyal to him, that you need to bow down to him. Is that really the thing? Is that really what a king would do? Would a king bow down to other men? You don't necessarily have to go straight in and calling him a gay cowboy. Because that might just offend them, recoil, and say, oh, you just sound just like those Kiwi Farms haters. I mean, it's trying to pull somebody out of a cult, it has to be an act of compassion and love. You can't just insult your way to waking some of these people up. Now, for some people that might work, but others, there's not so much. And if you are a current or former disciple of Mr. Fuentes, which I will admit, I never was. I was never a fan of his. I found him, I found him somewhat funny, but I never bought into pretty much anything he says. I've never been a Wignat. I never had a Wignat phase. I don't go to church, I'll admit, but then again, it seems like Nick Fuentes and I have that in common. But anyway, I would want to hear from some of you. Like, what's your experience been if you were in and out of that, or if you're still in it? Do you feel like you've woken up, or do you feel like things have changed? Do you feel like it was always this way, you never realized it before? So, I don't know. I guess we'll just leave it there. So, see ya.